Welcome to Chats with a Rat. Today we're talking to Kenny, aka Stark the Bartender. Go ahead and say hello, Stark.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Stark the Bartender is a member of the fandom and a very cool community member involved in a bunch of little things, well, probably incredible things, actually. One of them happens to be some world building that they're doing. We'll get into that a little bit, and as well as, I think you've been doing a little bit of Magic the Gathering as well, doing that sort of career too. So, how about if we introduce yourself? How about if you get into it?
Hey guys, my name's Kenny McConnell. I've been kind of in the fandom at least for about 2.5 years now, ever since like just a little bit before COVID. So it's been kind of a ride going through the community while, world events are happening. But yeah, I've been pretty much trying to work on a story for the past 2.5 years now, and it's mostly been a bunch of mind plots along with my brain's farting on the actual like ludicrosies of these things as you do. But basically I've been kind of commissioning a whole bunch of artists in order to illustrate out just the characters that I've been putting together and making stories for people, and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
World builder extraordinaire. So,
I'd like to think that.
I think you're doing a pretty good job. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go with the easy stuff. So, as I ask everyone on this channel, we're a gaming-oriented channel, right? Do you have a game or a title that you think is influential, or something that's either informative or just something really cool? What have you gotten into?
So when I think about that, I have to kind of go back to like when I was in like elementary school, and like, yeah, I think it was about elementary school when this was a thing. But yeah, I can't help but think of like Jak 2 of all things, where it was one of the first like story-driven kind of open-ish world games, where it was a sequel to like Jak and Daxter and whatnot that was all kind of hyper fantasy, and then they took a more darker tone in the second one. And even though it took a dark tone, it didn't feel like it was ever cringy, or at the very least, like, it didn't age to the point where we look back on it and it's like, oh, this dude's super mega dark death or something like that, right?
It's not the Devil May Cry one that we were used to.
Crawling in my skin.
Yeah.
But I actually just remembered like being able to go through the characters' stories back then, and honestly just loving the appeal of the world itself, the how do I put this? The
Like
acceleration of the fact that we went from high fantasy to a more cyberpunk-ish kind of world that felt natural.
Yeah, it was a break between dimensions, starting right off at the end of Jak 1. Jak 2 is, I think, set about a year after, but we won't get into spoilers for a 20-year-old game, but it was a very interesting like plot twist towards the end. What's your favorite part of that game? There's a lot of really memorable stuff in that, but like, what do you remember that was like, oh, that's cool, or something like that?
So, as silly as this is to say, it was probably getting the first gun that oddly popped up in my head, because I was just like, wait, hold on, let me get this straight. I'm playing a third-person like platformer that they gave me a gun?
Yeah.
And that, you tell that to a kid in elementary school back in the early 2000s, we're like, holy shit, this is amazing. Let's do it. Let's go.
Just vibrating in your seat. I think the first gun was like a shotgun or something.
No. There was no gun whatsoever in the first game. It was like...
yeah, the first gun, I should say. Sorry, I completely missed that up.
Oh yeah, the first gun is definitely a shotgun that the it's like a scat. I forget the name of it. I think it's called the scatter gun, where it's literally just a small area in front of you is just suddenly like pushed. And I was like, okay, I have a gun. I could use this. And then the second weapon is like a long range like rifle kind of. And then the third one is a freaking machine gun where you just hold down the button and it just goes.
Yeah, man. Like, I remember being into it because I played the first Jak and Dexter, and then the second Jak and Dexter I saw a lot of, like, back and forth. Like, the first one was powered by Red Eco, which is, like, their fire element kind of deal, and I think it was, the second one was yellow, and then the last one was blue or something like that.
It's just like change from in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, changing from Hamon to Stans, where it's just like, what eco? Who needs that shit? I got a gun.
Yeah. Exactly. Huge change, huge swap up with how that turned out. It was such a cool game. Where you mentioned Magic the Gathering earlier on during pre-recording, and I wanted to get into that. Like, so you got into Magic Gathering. What's your deck? Tell me about your deck.
So I'm a commander player, but recently is what I should be saying, because a lot of, with COVID kind of forcing us all to kind of stay secluded, I've been very lucky to have a good friend group who gets together, because we're all like live really close to each other, and just play at somebody's house. And I've been loving this mono black Yawgmoth deck, where it isn't necessarily synergistic. It's just me going, hey, what are the expensive black cards that I have? Let's just put them all in here, and and it just kind of works, especially when I will just play out a for those of you who don't know, whenever you play a Planeswalker, it'll have like a final ability that usually you don't get to, but it's there to like win the game in case like something happens. Recently, I got to ultimate off one of the Lilianas, where basically whenever a creature enters the graveyard from the battlefield, it just comes to my side of the field at the end of the turn. Which, for the record, because of the stating, the exact wording of that means any creature, as in the opponent's creatures too. So, like, if somebody goes, oh, I'm going to wipe the board. Okay, at the end of this turn, these are all mine now. And there are some decks that just can't stop that.
Yeah, I imagine it would be. I know a lot of commander rounds are like one-on-one, but I know there's a couple of like optional things where it can be up to 4. I can imagine that would be incredibly chaotic towards if you manage to get a 4-player and get that ultimate off.
That is commander, actually.
Oh, so it is 4 players. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So I guess I'll pull back a little bit and say what I did recently with I went to Las Vegas to go play Magic competitively, actually. Where it was a format called Sealed, where the idea is that you and some thousands of people or whatnot at a convention center are given 6 boosters, right? Of whatever the current set is or whatever we're focusing on, right? And the idea is that you build a deck specifically out of those 6 boosters. And it's really fun. It's how I basically got into competitive Magic, because it forces you to go, oh, what do I have at my disposal and what am I supposed to use with it? The thing is, though, you can get really bad pools. Because it's just simply, here's these 6 packs, I'll make a deck with it. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. What happened in Vegas was that I opened a really bad sealed pool. But I had fun losing in front of a lot of pro players.
I mean, that's an important part of it. You have to have fun with it regardless of what you do, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So why Magic? Why'd you get into that?
I got into Magic a while back because I want to say 1998, when I was living in a cul-de-sac, the guy opposite me was into Magic, and he told me kind of how to play the game, but I didn't actually pick it up then, but I always kept it in the back of my mind, right? I played Yu-Gi-Oh! for the record, this is like early Yu-Gi-Oh, back when there wasn't even such a thing as like synchro or whatnot. It was literally just, oh, it's Yugi going off to beat Pegasus and shit, right?
Yeah,
uh,
I remember.
played you
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I played Yu-Gi-Oh through that bit, and then like Magic kind of popped in with, because a couple of friends were playing it, and I was like, oh, honestly, I think I could give this a try. Why not? And I kind of just dug that a little more. And once Yu-Gi-Oh started getting a little too crazy for me with like synchros and whatnot, I kind of was like, you know what? Sure, I'll just kind of just start playing Magic. And it's a very kind of goodish thing I did that, because looking at the Yu-Gi-Oh scene now, it's literally turn 2, turn 1 wins. Is from what I can gather. The memes are kind of insane.
Oh yeah, I play Pot of Greed, and I pulled 2 cards out of my deck. It's all turn 1, turn 2 stuff, and Magic the Gathering seems to be a little bit more of your. I don't want to say it's more random, but it requires a little bit more strategy thinking forward. I'm sure there's combos that can win on turn 1, but I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Okay, so putting this into perspective, with Yu-Gi-Oh, there's kind of always just the full list of the amount of cards you can play. They'll have like a restricted list, a ban list, or whatnot, right? And they just kind of let it keep growing. With Magic, they've made several different formats to allow power to seep into later formats, which the idea is that there's standard, which is a rotating format of like the most recent cards. You can only use more recent cards in that. Then there's Pioneer, which goes back a little bit farther. Like it has a cutoff date of like Return to Ravnica forward. And then there's Modern, which is, I think, first mirrored in forward. I could be entirely wrong about that. But basically, there's the farther you go back, the more likely you'll find those turn 1, turn 2 like wins. But at that point, that's like high competitive Magic, as in the decks are more than like $5,000 worth of combos and cards.
That's a huge jump. But
at least that's actually like allowable, because those are the decks versus each other. That in Yu-Gi-Oh, you could have one of those like legacy power decks just faced off in a tournament randomly against like some kid who just joined, and like the kid's going to get slaughtered and is like going to have no fun, right? Like that's what I hear Yu-Gi-Oh basically is right now.
So there's not a lot of room for new players right now. I did notice that Magic the Gathering is a lot more accessible too.
Yeah, and with that and Arena, my goodness, Arena's been kind of the thing that's been helping me play Standard, because what Standard tournament is even happening right now during COVID?
What's your opinion on one of the newer sets? We've got the newest one coming out soon, which is the Streets of New Capenna, which is going to be a new thing. But what's your opinion on the I think the most recent Kamigawa Neon Dynasty? What do you think about that one?
It has been a big change up for a couple of reasons. One, the limited format is kind of insane. Like, I've been having a lot of fun just like playing Draft over and over, which, for those of you who don't know, Draft is a different format from Sealed in that it's both limited, but instead of getting 6 packs, you get 3 packs. You're at a table of 8 people, yourself included. And the idea is that you open up one pack, you look through the pack, you take a card from it as, you know, your pick from that pack, you place it down, and you pass the pack that you just opened to the left. So you literally it goes round the table of, you know, just people just picking one card from that pack, and you do that for all 3 packs. And it's more selective. You get more. The power level of Draft decks are usually bigger than the ones from Sealed decks, just because you have more control over what you're choosing, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So the idea that they did in Kamigawa for like limited was that they said, "Oh, how about in?" I think to make a little bit more sense of this, you have to go a little bit back to when we first went to Kamigawa, which a bit of a lesson here in and of the fact that the first Kamigawa set, while it's beloved, was actually a financial what's the word? A bad decision. Not a bad decision, but like it didn't do well for economically for Magic because both sets around it were just more powerful. It was and it was hard for Mark Rosewater to tell his like shareholders, we want to go back to this plane that kind of didn't help you guys out financially. Is that okay? And it only took them recently to actually, get to this plane. So instead of keeping it feudal Japan, which was still cool, don't get me wrong, I love
Yeah.
that. But what they did was they jumped Kamigawa forward many years to a technological era where it was allowed to have like steampunk-ish anime mechs kind of like feel. Because now you've got like, oh, you can actually like have characters riding mechs, or you can have sagas from actually that's another thing that I can get into, but I don't want to bore those of you who don't know what Magic is or whatnot. Just know that currently I am building a rat pilot commander in honor of our Salty here.
Oh, my fucking heart. Ah. Oh no. Okay, that's exciting. Like, I know this is kind of a weird tonal shift with Magic the Gathering too. Kamigawa Neon is going to be an interesting adjustment, right? Because isn't a good portion of Magic the Gathering more fantasy aligned, or in this? I know they had like that one. I think they had one invention and technology one not too long ago. I think it was Ravnica or something like that. No. Guilds of Ravnica. It was somewhere around that range.
Actually, the one you're thinking of is Kaladesh.
Kaladesh. Okay.
Ravnica is the two color guilds that basically take up a city that encompasses the entire world that they live on. That's actually a really cool world. We love that one.
Gotcha.
But you are definitely correct, because the one thing that they wanted to do was a sci-fi set, but they didn't really know how to tackle it because they didn't want it to be, oh, we're going to add guns to Magic. Like that just doesn't. They said that never felt correct. The most that they do with is like a blunderbuss or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something to where it doesn't feel like someone's adding a secret agent 007. Like, I'm going to start just shooting anybody in front of me. No, that's not what Magic's about. So when they got to like this, they had it be more fantasy oriented, where the idea was, I'm just kind of going over it and whatnot.
Yeah.
Long story short, they not only made it artifact based, they made it enchantment based, and specifically because the enchantments are the older ways of doing the of Kamigawa, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the sagas are about. Sagas were about like telling a story of the older creatures or whatnot. And that it's kind of cool seeing some of the fan favorites from the first Kamigawa kind of make cameos in these little sagas that they made that were really fun to play with, and I'm really curious to see if Kamigawa gets like a little more nod and praise because of this, especially since its land cycle right now is actually really good.
I'll have to take a look at it, because I got into Magic the Gathering. I think during the it was Shadows over Innistrad was when I got into it, and then I got back into it during the Guilds of Ravnica set, which was very fun. And then they started doing some weird stuff, which I was like, okay, I think I'm about to head out. But then we moved into some other things as well.
You'll actually like what the next set is. Do you know what it's based on?
If I remember correctly, we're talking about Streets of New Capranica, or we're talking about
No, Streets of New Capenna.
Oh, New Capenna. Okay, yeah. I don't know anything about it. Tell me all about it.
So I told my friend Austin this, a dude who doesn't play Magic, 3 words that made him go, damn it, don't you make me fucking start playing this game.
Okay,
and it's literally 1920s demon mafia war.
Fuck me. I know that the symbol for that one is something like angel wings, and they've got brass knuckles in the center or something like that. And I was okay.
The idea of the plane is that it was a plane created by angels, but through corruption, greed, and politics is now controlled by 5 demons. And they're all fighting for like territory control. And it's with the flavor of 1920s, 1930s artwork that just makes it so interesting. I'm like, God damn it. I fucking love that shit. Like that's such a cool hook.
I know that's kind of your vibe too, so I'm feeling that. Oh Lord. All right. So pulling it back, we could talk about Magic the Gathering basically all day. Let's go. Let's pull back from the many expansions there. Well, no, there's one more weird one. I remember what did you think about I think the last bit of Magic the Gathering that I looked at too before I pulled out, and then I'm gonna be back in because rats on motorbikes. So what did you think about there was one expansion that I can't remember the actual name of it, but it was an expansion based off of fairy tales, and like they made a huge trailer with like I think it was gingerbread cookies in a witch's house or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about I know the set you're talking about, but the name escapes me right now. Funnily enough, that fairy tale set actually was one of the more broken sets that came out recently, because there were like a whole bunch of cards from it that got banned.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me, because I looked at some of the card descriptions like, this looks broken.
So they made a new mechanic called Adventures, where the idea is that they have a sorcery or instant attached to a creature, and if it's in your hand, you can either cast it as a creature normally, or you can cast the instant or sorcery that's like attached to it and send it off on an adventure, i.e. putting it in exile when you cast the instant or sorcery. Which basically means all of these creature cards have had spells attached to them, which basically means they were literally 2 cards in one.
Bit of a dual purpose thing.
Which, yes, they had like dual cards before that had like split cards, right? That would be like fire and ice or turn to burn. So, like, basically they would have like 2 instants on one card. This is, every creature now has a thing to do. That's like basically a hand of adventure creatures, of like 7 adventure creatures, is technically 14 different cards. Like, that's kind of how you had to look at it. It's a lot more advantage, and it was just a really good gimmick. But the even funnier part is that from what I can remember, the cards that got banned, not immediately, but were allowed to play in or whatnot, was the Planeswalker Oko, who, when you look at him on paper, he doesn't seem all that powerful, but in play, you start to realize that him having the abilities that he does is a little janky. Especially in later formats where like you play him in Legacy and you go, I'll play him out and I'm just going to start stealing all of your shit.
What a mess. Yeah, but that's a part of card building, isn't it? You get into these weird combos and such. Okay, so what about deck building? Are you jealous of any decks that you've seen, or like, oh, I wish I thought of that? Anything that came up that during your like pro league that was like, oh, that's brilliant, or you've been doing this for like 2.5 years. You have to have
Oh
had
no! I've been doing this for way more than that. I've been doing this since like 2005.
All right.
About.
What's the green-eyed envy squirrel cannon in your head? What's the thing that you think is incredible right now?
Right now, actually, I think the question makes more sense for me to say I really wish I was more competitive early on, just because some of the early decks sounded really funny to me. I wish I was there for like Cobblade. I really wish I could have played Cobblade. That was so funny. Where literally you played Squadron Hawk, a card that was literally just, oh, if you play this 2-drop 1/1 flyer, you can go get the other Squadron Hawks from your deck and just put them into your hand. And then you go, oh, I'm just going to equip a sword to it. Swing.
Oh my god.
This deck eventually became the #1 deck in a standard.
No. All right. So it's just a bunch of hawks showing up and you swing with them. All right, cool, excellent. Well, I mean that makes sense. I mean, I got jealous. One of my friends, a guy's named Ram, introduced me to something called like a squirrel cannon, right? And I don't remember the remember the exact like rundown with it, but you play one card, right, that has a thing on it. And it's like every time that you tap it, it makes a copy, no, not a copy, but it gives you a 1/1 squirrel token, right? However, this is for every name of card and then squirrel on the deck. So every turn you have, okay, suddenly there's 2 squirrels, and then there's 4 squirrels, 16 squirrels, and like, I think on like turn 5 he had like 32 squirrels. It's like, all right, I'm gonna swing.
Squirrels are one of the strangely viable decks for Modern because of the Modern Horizons additions that they made. Funnily enough, one of the best cards from that set, at least to me, I swear, is Chitterfang, who, for the record, is literally just a squirrel that says, oh, whenever you create tokens, also make that many 1/1 squirrels.
Oh no! Yeah, I think that's the squirrel cannon I was thinking about, because that's all it is.
It's probably.
Oh, Lord.
So the best part was people were just adding him to token decks. Like, who cares if it's like Squirrel Tribal? He just doubles whatever bodies are on the field.
Oh no. Okay, so onto games and stuff like that. Moving to, I think, the last question I'm gonna ask about MTG. Magic the Gathering has had a lot of games in recent history, and I think we got an idea of what you think about Arena. What did you think about Magic Legends being shut down?
I will be 100% honest with you and say that I never touched it.
That's understandable. Well, like, I don't think I got into it either, right? It was a cool concept, but when I heard it was basically, it was a Diablo-like, and I was like, okay, shut my brain off. I'm not interested in this. And I think that's...
Magic is not a stranger to trying to branch out into other kind of forms of games, and I do applaud them for that. There's always going to be growing pains whenever they make a new set or a new product, and we're all going to wonder, like, what are the ins and outs of it and what's going to like stick. And you kind of have to understand that just some things just don't work, especially when you kind of have to think of like a whole bunch of like other properties that try and like branch out into other kinds of things. Look at how many like spin-off things for Pokemon there are, even just from like recently. Like there's Pokemon like Cafe, Pokemon like Arceus, which is technically not a spin-off now because they realized how good everybody loved that. Pokemon Go is still a thing. Like, there are just things that are going to work with the property and some things that aren't. And until we get that like super like cool open world MMORPG for Magic, I don't think like anything super out of the ordinary is going to like stick unless it actually has some kind of staying power within the cultural zeitgeist.
That makes sense. Like, yeah, I know Reno's basically a huge hit right now. Especially since after COVID hit, that was like a gigantic thing, isn't it?
Oh, dude, no, it became. It's not that. I want to say it and Magic Online are huge. The Arena is getting a little bit of flack right now because its economy is not as good as people would want it to be. Um, that and saying that it's mostly about like trying to build decks is kind of hard unless you throw money at it. But you could still pretty much play the game perfectly fine just by playing it weekly. Uh, but that's a conversation for another video.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, that would be an entire video by itself. Ugh. But all right, that that was an adventure. Very excited about seeing what else happens with Magic the Gathering. But let's see what else happens. Now getting on back to you, we're gonna go and pull down a little bit more information about what you do. So world building is like a huge part of what you do right now. You said you've been doing it for 2.5 years and all that.
Yeah.
Tell me about your two main characters. Your goat and your cobra, if I remember.
Ram.
Your ram. Excuse me. Yeah, your ram and your cobra. Tell me all about them.
Okay, so allow me to go into a little bit of my own brain here to simply kind of say, to go back and go, I've been kind of always a furry for a little bit. I've always loved the aesthetic of telling stories through like anthro animals because there's always things you can infer about their personality just from seeing them. And I always kind of...
The Disney effect, yeah.
The Disney effect, yeah. And the thing that I kind of was wondering was what I would do with a fursona. And I looked at a whole bunch of other people's and kind of went, I don't mean to at all put people down for their choices because please, like, do your thing. I promise you, you're fine. But all I could see were dogs, cats, and foxes. Like the three quintessential, like, oh, these are going to be everywhere people. So I kind of wanted to move away from that and try and think of something a little more just different. And I came across like the idea of, you know what, sure, Ram, why not? And instead of me just making the Sona just a Sona, I thought let's give him a profession just to make him a little more friendly, more something to where it isn't just like, oh, just a nude crotchless furry just like standing there waving. Nah, but like I thought, oh, why not make him a bartender? Just cuz, right?
Yeah.
So I made a little bit. I commissioned a little bit of artwork for him. For the record, I'm going to disclose this right now. Any of the artwork you're seeing of Stark, Teresa, and whatnot through this little thing are all made by extremely hardworking artists. I only commission them, and I want to emphasize that please, I'll put it in the description. We'll put in the description the people who drew these and whatnot, and I want to make sure that they get their credit. I am not an artist. I am a story writer. I am a world builder. Like, I want that to be said.
That's your jam. Okay, got it.
That being said, back to what I was saying before, I also kind of made Stark's name kind of randomly. Like, I'm one of those dudes who improvises a whole lot of what I do, and whenever I think of like a name for something, I'll just go off whatever's the top of my head, and if I like it, it just sticks. Because I've had people go, oh, is he named off of Game of Thrones or Tony? And I'm like, no, actually, the name just kind of popped in. In fact, it's his first name, so it doesn't technically work. But like, I wasn't even thinking of Game of Thrones or like Tony Stark when I was just like brainstorming. It just kind of stuck. But anyways, as with Stark, it was simply just kind of building myself up or whatnot. Teresa is a bit of a different number in and of the fact that when I was, it was 2020 February, where I was just in a bit of a loneliness patch because, it's February, Valentine's Day is coming up. We're all going, oh, great, got it. We're Single Awareness Day, everybody. Let's do this thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
and I'm looking through the Twitter feeds, and I saw one by an artist who said that she was doing 50% off 2 character pieces. And I just kind of commented randomly, this actually sounds like a decent deal, but I don't have anybody for Stark. And she contacted me saying, hey, if you are down for it, I could actually probably give you, if you want to go from scratch, if you have an idea of someone who would be with Stark, I could help you with that. And I kind of sat back, started thinking about it, and I started working with her to work out a design, and that's what ended up with Teresa, who I will completely admit, going on a slight tangent because I feel like this is something that I want to get out there a little bit more.
Go ahead.
Whenever we are feel free to disagree with me on this. You are absolutely fine to be valid at any point, because ultimately we're talking about metaphorical, fictional relationships. But I always prefer relationships where characters feel like they are distinct people who came together. Lord knows what Mickey and Minnie Mouse's relationship has done as a weird kind of staple for cartoon couples for the longest time. But you look at them and go, these two were clearly made by the same person. These two were made at a time where you just kind of put them together because they were mouse. They were both like mouse, and they were both ape. You get what I mean? They're mice.
Yeah, they're a couple because they're mice. Got it.
Yeah. And so I love the idea of dynamically different looking couples, and I love the idea of just a ram with a cobra, because you almost wouldn't think of them as being meeting at all. They don't seem to have how do I word this in a way that makes me sound intelligent?
I mean, we're all gonna mess that up, but go ahead, continue.
Right. The simple idea of you don't think that their destinies would intersect, but once they do, they actually form a really good bond. And that's kind of how I kind of see my couple making, or at the very least, my story of them being together. Which once I had Teresa, and I kind of had to. No, I didn't have to do this. It's more like my brain just does this because I have to fill in the gaps. I have to go, how did they meet? Why did they get together? And stuff like that. And so I randomly, out of fucking nowhere, just said, fuck it, they got together because of a murder mystery.
There you go.
And I started working on something called Pick Your Poison, which is the story of Teresa getting together with Stark by the end of it. Which is funny because whenever somebody asks me about it in when I'm at my job, I actually have an elevator pitch for it. It doesn't describe them as animals in case someone thinks it's weird. But the simple idea is, instead of a detective, it's a bartender who has to solve the murder mystery. Every suspect will come up to the bar, order a drink, have a small conversation with Stark, pay a tip, and then leave. And by the end of the night, somebody kills his boss.
Oh.
It's kind of simply that. where, of course, there's the animal aspect of it, but it's technically something that's more about the characters than the actual pitch. So it doesn't need to be a part of the pitch. But if I go into the actual world itself, one of the things that I found fascinating about like something like Zootopia was that it was all like mammals and all creatures that you could feasibly, interact with each other because of like the prey and predator thing they were doing, right?
hmm
But they didn't have any animal that could produce venom or like have any kind of like frog poison on them or whatnot that could kill somebody by coming into contact with them. I know. So I was thinking, what if I played around with that? And Pick Your Poison actually does have a lot to do with the world viewing those who have to have surgery or have to take antibiotics to not accidentally kill people.
Oh, okay, so like defanging, it's similar to like defanging on pet cobras and stuff like that you see every so often.
Kinda, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go too deep into it because, again, it's a murder mystery. I got to keep some secrets or whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love the idea of a bookend of the beginning. The start of the story would simply be him singing the song Susie Q while he's cleaning the dishes behind the bar, right? He's like just in front of everybody, and just it's the habit that he has to just. And by the end of the story, he'll be talking with Teresa and just going, I confess, I never really thought of you as a suspect to begin with. I just don't think I'm that great of a detective. And she just kind of goes, honestly, I'm used to you confessing to me, so it's not that big of a deal.
There you go.
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, you've literal. Okay. You're a bartender, and even though I've been going to you for the past like 6 months, I have yet to see you card me, which you might want to actually make a better note of actually doing. And she pulls out her ID, and it shows that her full name is Teresa Susie Quinova. Therefore, she is indeed his Susie Q.
Oh, that's so cute. Fuck.
It's something so silly, but I actually, when I was thinking of the character, I wanted a pun name, but I didn't want it to be like an obvious one. So I had to go off of the middle name, and then I had to make up a last name that started with Q, and I couldn't, for the life of me, think of one. I didn't want to look them up. I just went, what's the first thing that pops in my head? Quinova. Mm-hmm. Sure, I've never even heard of it. Let's go with it.
Yeah, that sounds about right, but that's incredible. Oh, man. I love cute stuff like that, like, all the time. That's always been a huge part of, like, stuff that I enjoy in storytelling. It's like, give me some cool twist. Give me some cute twist, and there you go. We got it. It's adorable. All right. Well, that's outstanding. I think that's probably the cutest thing I've heard all day. I appreciate that.
Of course. No, of course.
He's a bartender. Have you considered being a bartender in real life, or is that just like is that your stage occupation?
So I'm a server. I am a waiter at the moment, and I'm trying to be a bartender. I'm waiting for the people above me to kind of give me the okay to start training on it. But I'm always there, so I still know the lingo. I still know all the things that they have to do. At least from my perspective, I know that there's a lot of cleaning that goes on late at night. My goodness.
Yeah, I've been through that life, so it's all about waiting on the go ahead to get behind the bar. Mm-hmm. I think the usual rundown is bartender to bar back, right? No, excuse me, bar back to bartender, right?
I believe so, yes.
And it makes sense. I think you'll get there. At least you've got the personality for it. That's for sure.
I'd like to think so.
I've got a mood. I feel that. All right. What about the art? You mentioned that you've basically curated the art that we're showing right now. That we're showing off right now. Who's like your main artist, and why'd you pick them? There's obviously something there.
I never really want to like focus on an artist too much because I
Mhm.
don't want to seem like I'm ever like specifically only using them. One of the things I actually like about what I do is that it's a cursing and a blessing in and of the fact that Stark has been drawn by so many people. He doesn't have a definitive look. The only thing I will make sure that he has over each individual piece whenever I'm, going over it with a client, or not a client, but one of the artists, is let's make sure that he has the ram pupils in his eyes, because it's just something that not a lot of people do. And specifically the black straw that he always has in his mouth, which is a habit that I gave Stark that I actually do. I'm one of those dudes who will just chew plastic randomly, just because it's just something to like put in my mouth and calm, like chewing gum, right?
Yeah.
And I like the idea of Stark using these black straws that he has behind the bar to test drinks. By placing his finger over one end of the straw, putting it into the drink that he's making. No, it's actually putting the straw into the drink, closing it on one side, and then pulling up in order to like have the smallest bit of a taste from it, and then he just has it in his mouth the entire time.
Yeah, the siphon trick that they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I worded it a little weirdly, but that's essentially what they do.
Mhm.
And I like it cosmetically, just because it's just kind of something funny. I've had somebody go, "Wait, isn't that kind of like a health hazard or something, having just him spitting all over the place?" And I kind of went, "It's an aesthetic that I think just works for the character. I'm not going to go too deep into like the things that you are and aren't supposed to do in a world where everyone's an anthro."
OSHA's not gonna get on you. Health and safety is not gonna get on you for your comic. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's gonna get you on that. Oh boy.
He's gonna give the COVID to everyone.
Oh no. That's fine. It's
Not again.
speaking of timelines. So like I get the vibe that your setting is either modern fantasy or near future sci-fi. What's up with those themes? What got you into that?
I don't really want to say that they're like futuristic or sci-fi. I actually kind of feel more like the world that I have Stark be in is one that's predominantly modern, just with like anthros. I do have a bit of a magic idea for like actually, technically, those of you who know me already kind of know where I'm going with this, but there is a horror aspect that I thought of for Halloween, just because I love the idea of horror stories having a host. And so 2 years ago, for an idea of Stark for Halloween, I had him become demon possessed by a demon known as the Host, where the idea is that I would commission an artist. Instead of making a story with them, I'd have them be introducing a story that had a name drop of one of the other artists that I usually bring up, right? So I actually didn't put any of the Host artwork in. No, that's incorrect. Actually, there is one in here, but
I think
basically,
we have two, the black eyes, right?
yeah, black guys.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay. Yeah. The idea that ended up happening was I actually thought of backstory for the Host, in and of the fact that they are a demon that honestly really just wants to siphon off of the horror that they get from telling horror stories. So they're a horror anthology host that just takes over his body every October.
Oh God! So it's a little bit like what are they called? So it's a demon possession form of the Crypt Keeper.
Yes, basically.
Oh shit!
And the kind of the thing that I played around with them, you'll notice that I am using the term "them," by the way, because the host is actually non-binary.
I mean, it's a demon. Why are you gonna assign a gender to an outer world god? Yeah, I get it.
They go back and forth from one body to another body to another body to another body, as long as they set up the contract. So they either never really cared about which gender they were using. But you can argue that maybe they're more gender fluid than... Actually, that's more gender politics, and I admit I am not smart enough to like give these definitive terms. But I feel like the character is non-binary. So whenever I think of the host, I think they them.
Makes sense.
Stark is a guy, so he him.
just a dude. Yeah, I gotcha.
But so the thing I brought this up. There is a contract that they have with Stark, and it's not one that you would usually think, because even though I just told you that they siphon off the energy of the horror that they get from telling stories, they're actually not all that malevolent. So the contract that they give to Stark is simply this: okay, I'm going from body to body to body. I need someone to inhabit every October. Here's my deal for you. If you say so, I get your body for the entire month of October. But once I'm done with your body, I will heal your body entirely from any damage that I give to to your body and any ailment, illness, or disease you have, forcing you to basically have a pretty substantial life, like into the like hundreds or 120s or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's more of an actual give and take. You lose like the month of October, but your lifespan is longer.
Ah, gotcha. So here's a good question, right? Since this is new information for me, I'm like, okay, wait a second. Does this cause any problems with Teresa?
Yes. So one of the things that I love about the idea for Stark is that the real life reason for him not drinking a lot is, I'm not going to go into it because I'm not going to talk about it.
It's a little dark,
But
I gotcha.
In-story reason, he's a super lightweight.
Ah.
Like, he is an absolute, like, the second you give him actual alcohol to taste, to drink that isn't, like, the taste thing that I told you about, he goes into, like he's actually, like, kind of way too happy, and you can notice it, right? Whenever the host takes over, they will still act as Stark because they're always watching through his eyes and whatnot, right? But the host is a super alcoholic, as in can practically drink an entire bottle of Jameson and just be perfectly fine. And Teresa just goes, "Yeah, are you okay, Stark? Something seems off here." And she keeps piling it up until the host just kind of reveals themselves, going, this could be actually kind of funny. Sure, why not? And just reveals themselves to Teresa. But she's completely annoyed by the fact that this has happened. And it takes the host allowing Stark to pop back into his body for roughly 20 or so minutes to explain, for the record, this is actually a good relationship I have with the host. I'm not even really like being like held against my will here, I swear.
So it's a bit of it's a bit of a give and take, even though like personality shifts a little bit. But no, it doesn't sound like it's a huge problem for Stark. It might be a huge problem for Teresa, is what you're saying.
Yes, because she loses her boyfriend for a month, right?
Ah, yeah.
But the host has caveats in the subsections of the things for the contract that he signs, where it allows them to use his body for the month, but on certain occasions, it allows him to take back over for a period of time in order to actually, have special moments mean something, like the birth of a child
Mm,
or a serious like wedding. There are certain dates that the host allows them to take over as long as they add time to the count.
got it. So it's like, I got invited to a bachelor party. That sort of. I'm assuming maybe not that like that, but I'm assuming like just general. Oh, this is important. Stark's got to be there.
It's give and take in and of the fact that they go usually. How I see it in my head, they have the contract set up to where, oh yeah, sure, I can let you be in your body for, like 5 hours or so, and then once like the give and take for that, like 1 hour would be a day, so 5 hours would add 5 more days to the month.
Ah, wow. Okay, so definitely not a 1-to-1 then. Oh, but that makes sense.
Yeah. Again, demon contracts still usually will help the demon, but the host isn't malevolent. So there are far worse things that I could have done or whatnot with the contract, but I didn't want to just because I kind of see the overabundance of demons just fucking over the user.
So this is just they've got it covered.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. It's meant to be a little bit more lighthearted than I guess like a lot of other demon possession kind of storylines. I dig that. That's cool.
Yeah. So to answer the question that happened a little bit ago, there is a fantasy aspect to the world of Pick Your Poison, but I admit it's not one that drives the universe. It's just something that I kind of admit I like the idea a little too much to not just throw it to the wayside.
Gotcha. It's a situation of, oh, demons are here, whatever.
Yeah.
Got
like
it.
technically, possibly demons are in our world. We just don't know about them. So they don't drive up our economy unless it's, finds out Mitch McConnell or something is a fucking demon, which I wouldn't be surprised. That fucking turtle.
Oh Lord. All right. So now you've got pick your poisons, your big thing. You've talked about a little bit of it. Give me your elevator pitch for it. What's your rundown with it? If you were gonna go, you're going big desk. Here it is. Here's the setting. You're going up to insert comic book Dark Horse. Let's go Dark Horse, right? You're going to Dark Horse, and you sat down, and you're like, "Hey, yo, I got a story for you. Check this out. You want to publish it? What's your elevator pitch?"
So I actually kind of already gave you that a little bit ago with the thing that I tell my customers or whatnot whenever that comes up.
Mhm.
But I guess if I were to make it like full elevator for the actual like furry included story, it would probably go a little more into the fact that a bartender has to find out who killed his boss, an otter, and the suspects are a cobra, a tree frog, a wolf doctor, a lesbian horse chef, and a what's it? A marsupial? A koala.
Oh God, I don't see enough koalas. Yeah, okay, sounds good. So it's a murder mystery, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Does he have a time constraint? Is this like you got to do it by the end of the night, or some nonsense, or?
Yes, I like the idea of that, especially since I have an idea for how he's supposed to get everyone's attention. Because again, the dude's a bartender, right?
Mhm.
Right? He doesn't actually have any kind of like lawful staying power. It's literally just, at least with a detective, that he could talk to the police and be like, "Hey, here's like what I think of this and whatnot," right? But if the bartender finds out who murdered somebody, who's going to take him seriously enough to stop everything and just listen to him?
Gotcha.
Uh,
Bit of a time crunch on him then, and then of course maybe getting someone to listen to him is going to be a big thing.
oh, trust me, for the idea I have, it's quite a thing.
Oh, that's so exciting. So yeah, are you posting that to anywhere, or is it just currently all on Twitter? You said yeah.
I'm mostly just posting to Twitter. I admit I need to build a website to keep everything together. But yeah, the story of Pick Your Poison is currently only in plot points at the moment. I'm a lazy writer, admittedly, so I haven't actually written down the beginning, middle, and end. I more along the lines know the skeletal structure that goes from beginning, what I want in the beginning, what I want in the middle, and what I want in the end, without it actually being written out. And that is a problem that I completely admit that I have.
It's a work in progress. I got you. Yeah, writing is a huge part of it's a huge like undertaking, especially if you're trying to focus on like one thing. It's easy to world build because you can just, as a writer, you have the opportunity to say it's this, it's that, it's whatever, right? But like settling down on a plot point is like a huge thing you have to worry about.
Especially since the Team 4-Star and a couple of other writers have gotten me to really love dialogue exchanges, and I really need to work on the dialogue for this comic in order for me to feel like I did my job correctly. I love the idea of small bits of dialogue mattering later on without you even thinking about it, right? Like, small things that set up and pay off later, I want to really focus on, and I'm having trouble with a bit of the beginning dialogue coming off naturally, and that's another thing I really care about, like natural sounding dialogue. If you come to me with like, oh hi, my name's so and so, I like this and this and this, and I just go, okay, cool. Can I have a conversation with you that doesn't feel like a bio page? like right? Like I'm going to look at you and go, what happened in what happened in the scripting process there? Like,
I think that happens a lot with in like the role playing scene too. It's like, oh, I'm X and I do this. I'm like, cool. How does that fit with anything? Thanks, dude.
Like Jerry, I just asked you to go to the grocery store. I don't need to know your kinks.
God. Oh boy. Looks like we are running right towards the end. Do you have any wisdom you want to put forward to listeners? Any final thoughts or?
Don't just throw away ideas from before. If you want to hold on to ideas that you still feel like are worth something, because even with Pick Your Poison, it's not the only thing I'm technically working on. I have like if I were to say Pick Your Poison is the animated movie that I would love to make, another story is technically the animated series I would love to pitch. Which is funny because I literally turned a middle school OC that I had into a furry as well. And just kind of said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's kind of work on this on the side. It isn't my main focus because it doesn't even have a name, but the main character is an electromagnetic cougar named Net.
Ooh.
And which is funny because I've had people go, Net, what does that mean? And I go, oh no, it's another pun name, where the idea is you ask him, wait, what made you want to call yourself Net? Well, because of my powers, I didn't want to call myself Mag. So he's Magnet.
Oh God! We got another pun before the end of the stream. Oh no! Lord have mercy. All right. Well, that is incredible, Stark. I wanted to thank you very much. I wanted to thank you a lot for coming around. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And we got your final thoughts out. That's been great. Anything else you want to add?
Doing good, doing fine, doing everything right, because we're all going to party tonight.
All right, that was Stark the Bartender, i.e. Kenny. They're over on Twitter. You can go ahead and drop a link. It'll be in a link in the description. If you enjoyed what I did here today, this was Chats with a Rat. We have a Patreon. Patrons get early access to articles and features and get free voice acting and other things. So if you'd like to go and join that up, go and check us out over at patreon.com/saltyrat. And of course, follow me on Twitch, follow me on YouTube if you're interested in it. Likes are absolutely fantastic for the algorithm, if that matters these days, but who knows? It's been a pleasure. Have a great day, Stark.
Thank you, man. Have a good day.
Everyone else, stay salty.